thank you all for taking your time this evening to join us. We've been working on this project a little bit longer than 2 years and have made a lot of progress. And we wanted to touch base with everybody who's interested and make this information available later online as well. We have a long agenda. I think we have, if there's some burning questions that come up during the presentation, that's fine, but we'd kind of like to hold the questions till the end, if that's all right, just to make sure everybody gets through their presentations. But if you got a burning question, just raise your hand and we will definitely take the question. And with that, I want to welcome Michelle Paul and her team. Michelle, would you like to do a little bit of introductions and introduce your folks?
Sure. Hi, I'm Michelle Paul, Director of Resilience and Environmental Stewardship here with the city. We also have our environmental project manager, Courtney Cohen. She and I have been working very hard for the past few years on this, along with the community. And we applied for this grant about 6 years ago because we knew that although the party that was responsible to do the cleanup, although they submitted a closure report and what they call a permanent solution to the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, we knew that not everybody really had a lot of faith in what the results of that sampling was, and we wanted to trust but verify. We wanted to do our own assessment and work with the community to see what the community thought the gaps were, what still needed to be answered, what they wanted to see verified. That's what we've been working on with Buddy and Old Bedford Village and the rest of the community and the entire EnSafe team through this multi-purpose Brownfields grant, which will be wrapping up in September. And I think we've got a lot of good news and we've still got some work to do. So I'm going to hand it off to Miles.
All right, thank you. And with that, Buddy, we wanted to give you an opportunity to make some opening comments. And so,
thanks for the meeting. I just want to, at the same time, mention that we are having another meeting on March 17th at Golden School, which we expect to go over the things that we talked about at the January meeting and a continuation of this meeting as well. And with that, I want to inject something here that I understand that after this meeting, there's going to be a 45-day comment period. I wasn't aware of that. And so I want to request a 60-day comment period that would start April 1st through up to June 1st. That's in line with the planning process that we have put together in regards to getting all of the stuff that we have done over the last year, and particularly the most recent stuff that was reported out in January. And I know we're continuing that work that has to be done on the assessment side. And so I would hope that we could visit this as a group and make sure that the comment period is going to be one that's going to be really impactful. And I don't see that happening now. I know that our office is about 6 weeks behind our schedule of things and planning and things that we're trying to do, not only because of storms and vacations and all that stuff, but a lot of personal issues that are going on in the community as well. But the common sense part of it for us was that that this should be stretched out in regards to that more participation could take place. And so our planning goes up until the second week of June with this hold up that we've been having with the weather and all that. Now that takes our plan to the third week of July up until the 1st of August. Our report out doesn't change in December or January of 2027, where we expect to have our final plan ready. But in the meantime, I'm just happy that we're continually putting stuff together. We're continuing documenting and preparing documents for the community and for the reuse plan. So with that said, I think, well, if we're all in agreement with all this, I think we're in line with that, getting things done. And I know it's been a long time, Michelle. I know it's been a long time. And I think we're doing a good job. From the community perspective, we still have a lot more work to do. And a lot of that is what we're calling boots on the ground. And so we've already entertained a couple of the grants that we're talking about to help with that over the next 9 months. And I just want to end with this. We had a Brownfields committee meeting the other day that Michelle put together. And in that Brownfields committee meeting, we're talking about the revolving loan fund. However, something came up that I wanted to talk about during that meeting, Michelle, and I didn't remember it until Corinne Williams came on the screen. However, I was having a bad time with my screen. I don't know if y'all can see me or not.
You see
Yeah,
it.
okay. But I was having a hard time because what I did, Michelle, last week was revisited the Resiliency Hub grant that we did a few years ago, and I rewritten it for both the south end and the north end because that's something that we need to talk about. And then the day later, I get an email from Courtney saying that we're going to be talking about this and all that. The community's already talking about it. I think it's the timing of it's important, particularly as it fits into the reuse planning of our site. Thank you.
Yeah, buddy,
Yes.
I defer to the city, but I don't think our team has any problems with extending the comment period for 60 days.
No,
And
that's
that would
fine.
be, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, we're
that's just
fine with
general
that.
information. That's just.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine with us.
But yeah, we want to get your input. And so I'm Miles Ballog. I'm a national Brownfield practice leader, and we're just going to do introductions of our team real quickly. We have Cynthia Parafoy, formerly with EPA and the Office of Environmental Justice, who's helping out with community outreach and engagement. And then we have our technical project team who presented in January, and that would be Pat Kozak and Steve Atier. Steve, I can't see your camera. I don't know if you can join us there. And then we've had Lenny Siegel, who's been also advising us on the vapor intrusion perspective. And then we have Teresa Anthony with Adapta, who is their director of community relations, and Michelle Sopenheimer, who you're going to hear from later on about the reuse plan. And then we have Dr. Sandra Whitehead, who's with George Washington University. And Sandra and I have worked, I think this is our fourth HIA, Health Impact Assessment, on a Brownfield site, and really pleased to work with this team. I will just tell you that everybody who's been on the team really has been community focused, and that's the perspective that we bring, and it's just been a pleasure to work with them. And they're all going to get a chance to speak tonight. So I know that almost everybody on here knows what a brownfield is, but it's been 2 years we've been doing this. So, obviously, I think it's always, you never know if you've got a new person who doesn't know, but a brownfield is a property that's got a contamination issue or a perceived contamination issue. And what that usually causes or can cause is complications with redevelopment, where it takes a very long time for a site to be redeveloped. And these sites, particularly over the 27 years of the program, have been redeveloped for a lot of things that have been good for the community, including affordable housing, access to healthcare, economic development, clean air and water, mostly by removing contamination from properties. There's a brownfield job training program, as you all have had in New Bedford, so it's associated with training folks. We had the chance to have interns involved in this project as well, and safe neighborhoods. I don't ever give a presentation on brownfields to health fields without talking about the brownfield pioneer, which is Miss Willa Carson from Clearwater, Florida, who is a retired nurse. She was operating a free clinic out of an apartment, looked across the street. There was an old gas station, auto repair. She got everybody in the community together, the state legislature and the city. We had money to cleaned up the site, and it's still operating as a free healthcare clinic today. I always want to give her, the late Miss Carson, her respect, and she was really the original pioneer. And why do we do Brownfields to Health Fields? And I'd like to thank Buddy for his the beginning of this project and making it a health field project along with the city. It was really good. I remember the first time I saw that RFQ, and that was the first time I've ever seen it. I will tell you, since then, City of Houston and other communities throughout the country are catching on. So you guys are leading the charge. But why do we do this? I mean, most brownfield communities have higher levels of health disparities. They have higher levels of diabetes, heart disease, obesity, asthma, respiratory illness, and certain cancers. And many times that's due to, Buddy, I'll get your question after I get through this slide. That's due to, living near contaminated properties. And then in addition to that, you have the problem with not having some of the things that many people take for granted, which is like basic health care, having access to health care, having access to behavioral health, having access to fresh food. And then you have additional complications from other contamination, whether it's, I remember seeing a film on environmental justice one time where they showed a person who was living in a house that had lead-based paint. They walked outside. They were next to a poor air quality. They were near contamination. They had heavy transportation next to them. So many times we try to implement brownfields to health fields to kind of counter a lot of these negative forces that impact communities, really with the idea of using redevelopment as a means to reduce health disparities. And then Dr. Whitehead's a lot more of an expert on social determinants of health, but we're also looking at trying to address social determinants of health like housing, food, nutrition. I remember going to a Brownfield conference, it must have been 10 years ago, and seeing kind of the thing you see to the right where it says your zip code shouldn't determine how long you live, but it does. And so that's why we're trying to use a health field approach to reverse the numbers and create, longer life expectancy and healthier environments through this process. Buddy, with that, I'll take go ahead and shoot, and I'll move to the next slide.
I just wanted to show, well, I can't show it, I don't know why. The book from 2004, June 16th, Clearwater, Florida. This is the conference that I attended at Miles and Susie Rue's invitation in Clearwater. LEAF, the legal organization, assistant organization, I met them at a conference prior and got invited through meeting Susie and Miles, and then got invited. So this is the whole package, Greenwood Community Center. I got the whole package here, and this has been our Bible, my Bible, in regards to what we're talking about in regards to healthy communities.
Thank you, buddy. And that was at that where I showed Willa Carson's free clinic. That was where that was held. So that we go way back, way back. And so I just wanted to talk about the range of brownfield to health field. And I know we talked about this before. And the range of health field end uses continues to expand. And when I say that, particularly in Florida, when we had 2 hurricanes 2 years ago, we have a lot of issues due to flooding. We have to address climate change, and City of Palmetto developed a stormwater pond on an old railroad spur. So now we're trying to include more resilient brownfields that will address those climate change issues. But it's not just about healthcare anymore, although that's extremely important. As the population is aging, we see a lot more interest in senior care and activities. I was touring a site today with a pastor who is looking to try to create affordable housing for seniors in this area. But it's also about access to healthy food choices and You all had the leadership to do the healthy food, healthy places. And I know you have the community garden. It's extremely important. And then healthy housing. When I say healthy housing, that's from two perspectives. One, that, we look at older housing stock and address things like lead, asbestos, and indoor air quality, and things like lead in drinking water pipes. And then the other is co-locating healthcare with housing. What we're seeing now in Florida is there's an initiative or move to try to have access to healthcare near things like senior housing or near other affordable, attainable, and workforce housing. And then again, to improve the built environment. So for example, if you were going to build a community center or facility, you can put a walking trail around it. And so there's things that you can do into the built environment that will help improve health as well. And then I always like to go back to this, and I think Buddy and I thought that this was a really good example project. And this was down in Miami, where this site was highly contaminated. As a matter of fact, I worked with this site on this site with my former firm, and during some remediation activities, I actually caught a tank on fire, a propane tank on fire. Luckily, nobody got hurt. But after it was cleaned up, you have this YMCA that not only has all the things many YMCAs have, like the gymnasium, the pool, and aerobic activities, but they also have a wellness center. They have a college there for education. They have a preschool, meeting space, and I really like the cultural aspect of it. They have a theater here, and they have a fresh food restaurant. And the point of that is that when you're looking at a health field redevelopment, it doesn't just have to be one thing. It can be so many different things that address all the different health disparities. And that was kind of one of the approaches that we wanted to have. And we heard from the community on this one. And so with that, I've talked enough. I get to take a breath, and I'm going to go on mute and turn it over to Cynthia Parafoy to talk about community engagement.
Thank you, Miles. Hello, everybody. And Miles, there was a message a little while ago saying there were 2 people waiting that didn't have access or something. I don't know if that's been taken care of, but just wanted to make you aware of that. But hello, everybody. So much has been said already that I wanted to say. And I think it's really that this whole project has been set up in such a fantastic way to bring about things that the community would like to see take place in the future. It has been a real pleasure to work with this team, to work with the community. Buddy knows I have rung his phone up 1,000,000 times or more. And I'm really interested, Buddy, in the extended comment period. I want to sit down and talk with you about how that's going to go and how we can be of help in getting that done, because what we really do want to do is have a lot of great feedback from this project. As you know, we've had a real commitment for community engagement. I think the way this project was set up from the beginning showed that importance by having your organization at the forefront of it, having the community, having the internships, all of those things, having a liaison, all of that was really put in place to help the community be engaged with this project throughout. So I will tell you, from my many, many years at EPA, I'm really excited to have been a part of this. So looking at some of the activities that we've done to date were the many, many community meetings, the community surveys. I was looking through those today. There was so much good feedback that we got from the community surveys, many Zoom calls, many phone calls and community stakeholders. And, I was thinking about it today. Please say hello to the young ladies that we met with, who taught me all about how to have a tea party for my grandbabies. I'm doing it in a couple of weeks, and I just can't wait. I got to get their number so I can call them and send them some pictures. I learned so much about the history of that community, what it was like growing up there, just so much. And I have to say, it just kind of gave me a sense of purpose, of feeling for the community, of understanding why we're doing what we're doing, and working with this team. I think I've told them before, some of the meetings I've sat with them, I felt like I was back at EPA when they started talking about the numbers and the sampling locations and all that great stuff. It's just really heartening to be a part of that. And then to have the interns be a part of that and see firsthand how it, what things happen in the field. So anyway, I know I'm talking a lot more than I was supposed to. I talked about the interns and of course the sidewalks, coming around, walking through the community so many times, coming to your office and sitting and talking with so many people of the community, doing the interviews that help feed into the health assessment that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, health impact assessment. So anyway, as we've said, we're about to start a public comment period. We're going to be adjusting that based on Buddy's request. I really would like to have any way that I can help as we move forward to make sure we're getting feedback from the community. I'm willing to help talk, whatever needs to take place to really get the word out on this and to help folks out with what we have done. So that's about it for me. I just want to keep saying, and I know we'll be around for a while and you're going to really hear a lot of great information. But now you're going to hear all about the environmental assessment objectives. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Okay.
I just, you just said it all perfectly. I don't think I could add, or I'm going to guess Steve couldn't as well. We felt so a part of the community and the entire city and Old Bedford team from the first meeting I remember in June, before we even submitted our technical scope of work. It's been such a pleasure working with everybody, so many facets and so much to learn. Our role as the environmental engineering group was very focused, not as perhaps creative as some of the other members of the team, but what I'm here tonight and with my partner, with my partner, Steve Viteri, is to go through basically what the environmental team, what our approach, how we developed the approach and came to it with the city and with Buddy and other community partners, and then present to you some of the new recent data that we've collected and evaluated. In just a little bit, Steve, my partner in this, who's from Mabott and Associate, and his wonderful team of field technicians who helped, as well as Courtney. Courtney was just the most fantastic liaison for us, giving support with the DPI and whatever we needed, to the smallest things like getting the gate open at 6 a.m. Yes, she was fantastic. Appreciative to all of that support, because it really takes a lot to pull off these field programs, and you get challenged, as we had a number of challenges, but doing it together as a team makes it a little bit easier to bear and always a better outcome. So I'm going to start just giving an overview of our engineering objectives and a little of the data, and then I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Steve Viteri, who's also our licensed site professional. He'll explain that role and also provide information on, putting the data in a bow for us as to what the next steps would be, so that we can ultimately get to that objective that goal that we all want to reach, was just redevelopment of the property. So with that, why did we do additional sampling? Why did we need to? What happened is that when the city awarded this project, this work to us. The work, part of our role was to come up with a technical approach. And what we found, and it was pretty immediate, was that the data, there's been a lot of assessment on this site, and it goes back to 1999. So there's over 20 to 30 years that this site has had different consultants in here working, collecting data. But when the permanent solution statement was submitted in 2019, there was some review and some concern that maybe there were some data gaps. So Steve and I and his team, we set about to identify what those data gaps would be. We shared them with Michelle and the city and others, and came up with this plan, both to sample soil, groundwater, and then I'll talk about indoor air. We started with soil vapor, excuse me, and then to soil, and then to groundwater. What we found is that it was necessary for us to collect additional data because most of the data on this site was 20 years old, 20 plus years. And if you go back 20 years, a lot of the standards for the Mass DEP, a lot of the regulations have changed. So there were a few things that we had to focus on. We developed a sampling plan. Our objective was to collect additional data and then compare the recent data, which gives us present conditions. That's really important because a lot of times natural attenuation, nature is breaking down products. We need to know what we're dealing with right now, because that's important for the future development, whether or not we need to address anything as part of that development plan. And then we were tasked from the city and from Buddy to reevaluate any potential for vapor intrusion. And in a second, I'll talk about vapor intrusion. And then finally make our recommendations, whether we needed additional assessment, possible mitigation, or both. So just before we switch on, on the slide, oh, sorry, back one, Miles. Yeah, the reason why I have that drawing for anyone that's not, engineeringly trained or used to a plan, just to orient you in terms of the site, it's bounded, you can see by the lime green two rectangles. And then you see sort of a curvy dotted green line, which is showing what the limits were defined of the contamination in groundwater back in 2019. Part of our job was to recheck that to see if that had changed at all. But to orient anybody on the call that isn't familiar with environmental sampling or data, that red crosshatched area is the former source area where a lot of cutting oil had been released and some solvents that were used for degreasing. What's important is noting the groundwater flow. The direction of groundwater flow is to the southeast, heading towards New Bedford Harbor. So if any of the contaminants from the source area could migrate down into the soil and into the groundwater, you can see from the direction of groundwater flow that it would migrate in the area of the tip of that arrow, and that's why the green is pushed out into that sort of oval bulb. So we can go to the next slide. Miles, please. Okay, so what did we go back and look at? We came to the conclusion that we needed to look both in soil and groundwater at three groups of contamination. The first one is PFAS, and I'm going to talk about that in my next slide in a little more detail. And then the second group is volatile organic compounds. The volatile organic compounds are what would be in the solvents that were used as degreasers. There was so much cutting oil used when they were cutting the metal for the twisted drill tips and any other metal manufacturing. They need to wash that or remove that oil at the end of producing the component. So volatile organic compounds found in degreasing, And then the cutting oil, a heavier petroleum that's used to reduce temperature and friction when the workers are actually at their stations cutting the metal. So PFAS, if we could go, oh, before we do, let me just talk about these photos quickly. On the top left corner, that's our wonderful team, both from Mabit. We have our EPA managers, and we have our interns that helped us in the early stages of the field work. We did a wonderful intern program, and I think Eldrick is on this call, and I'm not sure if any of our other interns made it. But it was a joy to work with them and help them gain valuable experience in sampling in the field. There's a photo of Steve and Buddy in deep thought as we're walking around the site. The photo on the top right is the product that we'll talk about. Steve will be talking about in a little more detail that we identified in one of our monitoring wells in November. The bottom left corner, you all know, is Courtney Cohen. She's our wonderful project manager from the city who was out in the field with us, whatever the conditions, whether it was sub-zero or hot, she was always helping coordinate with the city and drillers. And our photo on the far right is Cassidy Way, our manager, field manager from Mabit and Associates. And then one of our interns, I think that might be, I'm not quite sure, maybe Eldrick knows, I'm not quite sure who that might be. Asen, I think it's Asen Neves. But anyway, we can go to the next, yeah, I think it's Asen. To the next photo. Okay, so PFAS. This is a mouthful. Per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances. Yikes, you know, I mean, how do they come up with these names? Better known as PFAS, and it's kind of a buzz right now in, you know, everybody's talking about it because it's everywhere. It has serious health implications. So there's been a lot of work both at the federal and state level to create standards, both in drinking water and as well as cleanup levels for soil or groundwater so that we can get this under control. Why is it important for us in this project? Well, it turns out that all of the data that was done 20 years ago, PFAS really wasn't at the front of the bus. People weren't talking about it yet. So with our particular site, it's common knowledge that PFAS was often added to cutting oils or any kind of lubricants and oils, but particularly cutting oils because it helped with reducing the heat and the friction, and it helped stabilize the oil so could it be recirculated over and over again rather than just be used one and done. So it was important for us to sample for PFAS. I'm going to do a spoiler alert right away to say that it is not going to be an issue, a condition going forward with redevelopment, which is a wonderful, positive result. No roadblock in terms of redevelopment. PFAS we sampled was all below standards required. So it is not something that's going to impact the design of the future redevelopment, but just a little bit to orient anybody that isn't familiar with PFAS. If you've heard of Teflon, if you've had those Teflon on frying pans with that coating, the slippery that makes things slip, that is a PFAS compound, Scotchgard, that we spray on fabrics or sofas or canvas on boats, anything that repels water. Even down to like your popcorn, the liner of your microwave popcorn bags, that kind of glassy coating. Those are all examples of PFAS, and we're trying as a society to reduce the use and take them out of products so that we have a healthier environment. But for us, it's great. We could tick it off the list. And so next slide, thanks. So what we did encounter, and it's something that we're going to address, as Michelle mentioned in the beginning, is that we encountered in groundwater concentrations of the volatile organic compounds that I talked about that still exceed what's called GW2 standards in Massachusetts. And when that happens, it doesn't say that for sure there is vapor intrusion, but the state requires engineers to gather additional information and lines of evidence so that we're sure that vapor intrusion is not occurring. It's an unhealthy state. Vapor intrusion happens when you have contamination that's volatile contamination in groundwater or soil that can migrate up through the interstitial spaces of the soil. And if there's any cracks or holes in a crawl space or basement, if it enters into the breathing zone of the structure, that's defined as vapor intrusion. And we need to test indoor air to make sure that there's no contamination that could cause health harm. And that's something the city is very dedicated and committed to. So we'll talk about that. We're going to be performing some indoor air testing so that we can rule that out. If we do determine that there is vapor intrusion, there are simple, rather inexpensive ways to mitigate using what's similar to a radon system where you basically suck the air from underneath a basement or a slab and then take it up a pipe into the atmosphere. But we're not there yet. And so at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Steve Viteri, who, like I said, is my partner in this engineering effort. And I'll let him go forward, talk a little bit more about the groundwater and also about the product and the next steps. But it's all good news. So thank you for your attention. And Steve, take it away.
Thanks, Pat.
Sure.
And yeah, welcome everyone. Thanks for letting us in your homes tonight. And pleased to be presenting the data that we've collected over the past several months here. Michelle mentioned the term LSP. Miles may have as well. An LSP is a licensed site professional. And a licensed site professional is an individual that's certified by the state of Massachusetts to evaluate environmental data and quantify risks and propose cleanup actions at contaminated sites in the state. So it's a program that Massachusetts has developed that empowers, quite honestly, that LSP to make cleanup decisions on behalf of a property owner. And so expertise is not only in soil, groundwater, and the contaminants that are often released to those, but also it requires an extensive knowledge of the regulations. So that's my role in the project. I work together with Pat and the rest of the team here to come up with a scope of work. And really, I'll repeat it again. Our goal was to look back and try to verify the conclusions that were reached by the prior work that was done at the site years ago. It had been some time. The environment, it's dynamic, it's changing all the time. If you think about groundwater, this flows from, in this case, it flows from the site towards the harbor. You have rainfall that percolates into the ground. You have all sorts of other forces that move contaminants in the ground. There's a natural attenuation that happens. There's biological processes and chemical processes in the subsurface that can naturally degrade some of these contaminants. So it's a good idea to go back and reconfirm data if a long period of time has passed since the last collection. So with that in mind, we set out to verify those conclusions, but also just do things in a stepwise manner and then follow the path that the data sent us to. And then before I talk about our results, I just want to make the point that nothing that we found, Pat did mention we found VOCs in groundwater. There's nothing that we found that we were really surprised about. Typical for a site where there was what we call separate phase oil that's directly released into the groundwater. This stuff lasts for a long time. It takes a very long time for it to go away. The remediation that was done was able to extract a lot of that oil from the ground and then bring it off site to a disposal facility. But there's always, most times, the geology in sites like this is so complex, and there's all sorts of nooks and crannies. It's nearly impossible to get everything out. And when you do, even when you get most of that oil out, some of that stuff dissolves into groundwater, and that's what causes this groundwater plume. So that lime colored outline that's shown on the plan right here. So I just wanted to emphasize before I started to talk about what we did and what we saw, that the concentrations that we see and the types of chemicals that we see in the groundwater is exactly what we'd expect. When the prior work was done, they took the step of evaluating the potential threat of vapor intrusion and collecting indoor air samples. They reached a conclusion that there was no significant risk to the homeowners or other community members from the contamination that was there, and we fully expect that the results of our investigation will conclude the same. So talking about VOCs, VOCs is probably the chemical of most concern because it's so mobile. It can move around in the environment. A volatile organic compound is one that really wants to be in air. So it's in oil. It can be released to the groundwater. It can dissolve in groundwater, but it really prefers to be in a gas phase. So what it does, it tends to volatilize and it can move in the ground surface and move upwards. And so that's how it goes. Sorry, I think I lost my connection for a second, but I think I'm back. So at this site, the groundwater table is about 5 to 10 feet below ground surface. And so volatile organic compounds on the groundwater table will move into the air and move upward into towards the ground surface. And if it happens to encounter a building foundation that has a crack in it, it finds the path of least resistance and it can get into indoor air. So that's what's really the two things we were concerned about. Is number one, of course, is the safety, health and safety of the community, whether they're residents that could potentially be exposed. But our secondary concern here was whether this would be an encumbrance to redeveloping the Morse property. So Pat also mentioned the GW2 standards. Those are kind of the screening values that are used by in the Massachusetts regulations. If we did find, they're shown here in bold red type, we found a couple of compounds. These are chlorinated volatile organic compounds that did exceed that GW2, and that's essentially a trigger for the LSP to take that next step. And that next step is typically to go and pursue indoor air samples from residences that are in the immediate vicinity of those exceedances. And so, I would say the first leg of our plan for additional work is to work with the homeowners here shown in purple, and to gain access to their homes. The process of sampling indoor air involves step one is to do a recon of the building. There are a lot of household products or even hobby products, if you can imagine, like model glue and things of that nature, or cleaning solvents that have volatile organics in them. So our first step, whenever we do an indoor air testing event, would be to look in the home and see if we could identify any materials in there that might cause a false positive and show up in an air sample that can't be necessarily attributed to the groundwater plume and vapor intrusion from below. So that's we'll do that before we collect the samples, and we'll do our best to ask the homeowner to remove those on the day that the air sample's taken. And then in a second trip would be to visit the home and place in the basement, and then potentially even on the first floor, a small sampling canister it's under a vacuum. It has a valve on it. We unscrew the valve, and that slowly draws air into the canister. We leave it there for 24 hours. We're trying to simulate 1 days of occupancy of that space. And then we come back after 24 hours, close that valve, and send that sampler to a laboratory, and the laboratory will do analysis to determine whether there are volatile organic compounds in that air sample. There are Mass DEP publishes standards. We'll look at the results from that air sample, and we'll compare those results to Mass DEP standards, and then that will be the the basis of our conclusions about whether or not there is a vapor intrusion risk. Like Pat said, if there are vapor intrusion risks, there are ways to mitigate those with a retrofitted type of radon type system. So that's our I guess first topic here, VOCs and some of the additional data that we intend to collect here in the coming months. We have a plan into EPA to do that work, and we're starting to coordinate with the community, with the city and the community to try to gain access to these homes. Buddy, I think you have your hand up. You have a question I can answer. You're on mute.
Well, hi, so thank you, Steve, and Pat, good report. And doing this, investigative stuff, all this, I'm not sure the right terminology, and the homes of the homeowners, prior to going into, to go ahead and do the actual air sampling that you guys do, where you leave the equipment there and then come back 24 hours later. What I have learned from the work that's been done in the past, and from having to hang out with Denny Siegel in the past, different conferences and learning about some of the stuff, that what usually gives a false reading are the materials that people have in their homes, such as if an individual has a garage, more than likely he's going to have a gasoline can or an oil can, or some things of that nature. If most of our guys that work in this neighborhood, in that area right there, work in construction, or they do something in that area. And so therefore they may be one of those homes that may have those things that trigger a premature aspect of the vapor intrusion. So my suggestion, or my asking, is this possible that a week before we plan on visiting these homes to talk about putting these canisters in there, can we have an educational piece put into it? And I wish we had the interns still on. They could probably help with that. Okay, where you guys, you and Steve and Pat, y'all will go to these same households a week before or so,
Right.
and say, hey, we're going to come and do this. However, these are the things, and give them a printout, a little bit of notebook things so they can see what the lawnmower, the gasoline for the lawnmower is going to do, what it might do, or I don't know what other things that exist. Okay, you guys will know better. And what I'm suggesting is that let's have a laundry list of these things that may trigger or give a false reading a week before, so that we actually go and do it. So most of that material is out of there. It's out of the house. The house has had their spring cleaning, so to speak, and we've got rid of all that junk. And now you guys come in and do your testing and hopefully get a better reading that doesn't give you all the ifs, ands, and buts, and so that we could make everybody feel happier, faster, as well as getting good data.
Yes, sir, buddy. Yeah. So as a matter of fact, so our procedure, and I think we insist upon this really. We have a checklist. We give a checklist to the person that's going, our field technician that walks in and has a list of household items that commonly interfere with indoor air sampling, like contain volatiles of some type. So all those things you mentioned, like gasoline, of course. Sorry, I think I broke up again, but yeah, there's also cleaning solvents is one of them. There's a lot of like hobby glues and things of that nature that have a lot of these solvents in them. So we'll do exactly that, buddy. We'll go in and we'll educate the homeowner. We'll keep notes, and if it's something that's permanent that can't be removed even temporarily, then we'll make note of it, so that if something shows up in a sample, we know that it may not necessarily be from the site. It may be from something in the household.
And this is a perfect opportunity.
It happens a lot.
This is Nicole Williams. I'm sorry, my camera is glitching out. But this is a perfect opportunity for education for these families as well, right? Because the whole purpose of going in there is to see if their air is contaminated. And if they're self-contaminating, this in the ways that you would remediate for, these volatile organic compounds within these spaces, they should be made aware of ways in which they can do it as well if they have to store these, contaminated items in their home.
Right,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And I'll just add one more component. When the inspector, when we get permission, Courtney's working on getting access and agreements to a number of different families so that we can enter their homes. We'll also be bringing a piece of equipment called a PID meter, a photoionization detector, which will help, I think, Buddy, to your question, it will help in terms of for us getting total volatile. It's a meter that will give us a screening information. It's not just the checklist, but we also have a screening instrument that will actually analytically compute, if we're getting higher VOCs in this corner or on that shelf, to be able to sort of direct us what is maybe a bad actor and could be moved, so that when we come in the following week, like you're saying, and that's exactly, you've nailed it. That's what we put in our plan to EPA, is inspect the week before, prior to bringing the SUMA canisters to do the actual measurement. So it's not just a checklist, but it's also screening with instrument. I just wanted to mention that. So it will really help us so that we'll all feel comfortable that when we do get that data, it means something. It's meaningful data, it's reliable, and it's representative of actual vapor intrusion and not interference. Anyway, Steve, go back. We interfered with your conversation. Sorry.
No, good stuff, Pat. Yeah, and then before we move on to the cutting oil, I think it's just on the next slide is just want to stress again, nothing that we found here with respect to volatiles should have any encumbrance on the redevelopment of the property. So these are all issues that are commonly addressed in redevelopment in urban areas throughout the Commonwealth, on a daily basis. So very common types of contaminants, and shouldn't be a major encumbrance to any redevelopment. I guess one of our second findings, or maybe it's the third, if we want to say that we were good on PFAS. We were pleased that PFAS were not present, a concern, is the cutting oil. So as I mentioned before, when oils like this are released to the environment, they move down through the soil and a lot of times float on top of the groundwater. And we do our best to remove these just by using extraction wells, but very complex geology at these sites in New England, and you can only there's a lot of space between wells. You can only put wells on maybe 20 feet or 50 feet apart, so you can imagine the space in between. And after time, things kind of get stuck in there. So sure enough, we put in a new well, NW3. We went down into that well. It's within the fenced area of the site. It's right about where we would expected it. So again, no surprise. And again, not anything new. We did know that there was heavier petroleum cutting oils. We call it non-aqueous phase liquid, NaPl. So if you hear someone say NAPL, sounds like apple. We're talking about oil, just separate phase oil that's sitting on the groundwater table. So we found a little bit of residual, not uncommon. It's something that's been, it's known to have been there since 1990. This is just remnants from that extraction that was done at the, in the early part of the century. But at the same time, it's a little bit of inside baseball from a regulatory standpoint. But the type of permanent solution that was achieved for this site and recorded with Mass DEP back when that prior work was done doesn't allow for NAPL to exist on the site. So there's a little change in that type of permanent solution. Some of the restrictions that are on the site it will be required in order to move forward and keep that permanent solution in place. And in order to get to that endpoint, there needs to be some more additional assessments. So it's essentially going to be trying to figure out, what's the horizontal extent of that cutting oil on the ground. It's essentially requires moving out from the MW3 location, and maybe we'll start at the 4 cardinal directions and putting another point in there and to see if there's oil there, and if there is, then stepping out until we reach the end of it. And really what our goal there is to get a really strong hold on how much oil, how thick it is, how and what the square footage, area of that remaining oil is, so that we can report that in a revised permanent solution, and then put the necessary restrictions on the site, so that the NAPL's not a significant risk to human health in the future. So that's a more additional assessment that came from the work that we did. And again, not a new condition or surprise condition, and really, again, nothing that's going to encumber the development of the site. So here's just a kind of a wrap up of what Pat and I talked about. Number one, PFAS compounds. Pleased to say they weren't detected at concentrations that will be of a concern for this site. We have no further action on PFAS. Glad we took that step. Glad we could rule that out. It is a very hot topic, the presence of PFAS in the environment. They're ubiquitous. They're used commonly in all sorts of household products. And they happen to impact water supplies all across Massachusetts. So it's great that we were able to rule that out as a concern for this redevelopment. Second was the VOC concentrations in groundwater, and to address that and to verify those prior conclusions about vapor intrusion and potential risk. We're proposing to collect indoor air samples at 11 properties. Of course, after we do an inventory of chemicals in those homes, we'll leave a canister for 24 hours and take a 24-hour grab sample, have those analyzed, and then we'll be able to draw conclusions about the potential impacts of vapor intrusion on in those homes. And then third is the cutting oil that we discovered when we were in sampling MW3. And so that additional assessment will involve some drilling, maybe a couple of additional wells, and then just again making sure that we can accurately delineate that the extent of that oil, and we can update the permanent solution for the site. And then again, I said it a couple of times, but I want to make sure that we continue to make the point that all this stuff, this assessment and mitigation, can be done while the site's being redeveloped. Shouldn't result in an impact in a delay in schedule, and it shouldn't encumber any of the reuse scenarios that we've been talking about here as a group.
All right, were there any additional questions on the environmental portion? We can take a question now if anybody has any, or we can wait till the end as well, if anything comes to mind. Buddy, if you're talking, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do want to, the last slide, where you talk about the best news, you can continue on with development and all that. Additional assessment mitigation can be completed while site redevelopment proceeds. I'd like to talk about that more. I don't think this is the right time to do that, but I think that's a red flag for me, considering what number 2 and number 3 is all about, and looking to see that a completed remediation is done, and can be done well in the realm of what we're talking about. But I'd like to be more specific on timelines and things of that nature, than just the general statement that we have right now. But I can, well, we're gonna be talking about this over the next few months, which is again why I am going to reiterate that the comment period, which now I understand is supposed to start tomorrow. I'm asking that the comment period not start tomorrow. I'm looking for the comment period to be a 60-day comment period based on, and if you look at all the information that we got here, guys, we got a lot of information that has to be dealt with and go through, and not just with the site assessment, the health, everything else that we talk about, the surveys and all that. And if this particular meeting right now, which is a good meeting, if there were more residents on this meeting right now, then I could say that could justify, but we only have 2 residents on this meeting. So that doesn't give us, and yeah, there are some other people here from New Bedford who are on there, but I'm not counting the people who work for the city of New Bedford. I'm not counting those who are, if you're talking about community people, there's only two of us. And that's it. And so I think we've done it all this time. Another 45 days or whatever it is for the comment period that I'm talking about. I think it ought to make sense considering
Sure.
all that we've been through. So I'll leave it like that and move on.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments. And right now we're going to introduce Dr. Sandra Whitehead and let her talk about the health impact assessment.
Can I say one more thing, please?
Sure.
I want to recognize Paul Deere and Paula. They have been to many of our meetings, and they have been a part of our team in getting information and things of that nature. And excuse me, and they have also printed some information about these meetings and about the information. And I want to make sure that stuff that they have printed is part of the documentation that's not only on the website, but also at the library and in our office. That information that they have put together should be part of all of the packages that we have. And we've got quite a bit of information. And I think that's one thing this project should be proud of, that we have a lot of good visuals and things of that nature for people to read and learn and be more. And I want to thank Paul and Paula for their due diligence all this time, being involved, and all the information they've helped us put together. So thank you, Paul, for being here. And again, I'll try to be quiet. Goodbye.
No, thank you, buddy. And Paul and Paula, thank you all for attending. I definitely recognize you and have had a chance to meet with you all. I appreciate all of the residents attending tonight. And I do think it's good that we are recording today so that this will be available to everybody as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Whitehead. Sandra, please.
Thanks, Miles. So part of this project was to do a health impact assessment. And what we were looking for was, number one, identifying any underlying health issues and strategies that will help the redevelopment team maximize community benefits from the redevelopment and other activities that are supported by the multi-purpose grant. The other thing that we wanted to do is that we wanted to look at different reuse options that our reuse team is going to talk about and quantify some health impacts of those. And so the first thing that we did is I want to talk about, like, what is the HIA? It's a tool to help us predict health impacts before they've occurred, and we're predicting them before the decision has been carried out. So in this instance, it's the redevelopment plan for the Morse cutting tools site. And so the result of this is some recommendations that are real, things that the community can do to participate in the process and to protect their health. Next slide, please. So we start with looking at the baseline community health data. A lot of this data, some of it is countywide because we had to rely on the countywide data. There is not New Bedford specific health data, but if you're looking at the averages, right, and our obesity in New Bedford, in Bristol County, is 34%, which is higher than the state at 25%. The number of people who in the survey that the health department did reported poor mental health is 19%. And statewide, that's the state health department that did this survey. And statewide, that's 12%. Lead poisoning cases per 1,000 people is 7.2 in New Bedford, and it's 2.9 in the state. So that is something that we need to key on and look at. And 38% of people in Bristol County said that they did not get exercise at all, as opposed to 22% statewide. Now, 11% of folks said that they were food insecure, and 45% said that they had transportation barriers to medical care. 55% said they didn't know what medical services were available nearby. And I know a lot of people in the community I talked to said, yeah, that's great. There's a clinic nearby, but we can't get there. We don't have a way to get there, or elders can't get there on a regular basis to be monitored. Um, and then and also, we also talked to a number of people who talked about food security as an issue, and you all had the local food, local places report that we were able to utilize as part of the recommendations, to revisit the recommendations from that and reiterate those so that those can come back up. But the other thing that we heard in talking to folks is this loss of gathering places. Elders talked about having a place to sit and visit, having, a place for children to gather, having a place for young mothers to gather, barbershops, cafes, corner stores. And a lot of these places that used to exist in your community are now vacant. And I got the list of vacant properties in your community, in the community from the city. And there's 26 of them, including 3 commercial spaces that could be used to support your health as well. Next slide, please. So the environmental conditions, you just heard from Steve and Pat talking about how PFAS was not detected, but there is an ongoing concern about the VOCs in the groundwater, as Steve was just discussing, and additional assessment and mitigation can be completed, right? They're going to also work with residents around the vapor intrusion risk. Next slide. So what we know about those is that we can still redevelop the site based on the environmental conditions. And we looked at these 4 options. Senior housing, one of the things we heard was that there is not enough housing in this community. And looking at the demographics, seniors make up a lot of the community. So one of the things that we also heard was that there's not a place to get your blood pressure checked, to check in with a nurse. And so this is one of the possible uses: affordable housing for older adults with on-site health, a community hub with youth programs, cultural activities, a community center, but more of a hub of activity, right? More than a center. This is where you would have your workforce development training, which has been ongoing in your community. A food access hub is another possibility, where there would be some healthy food retail that would take SNAP and WIC and other nutrition programs. And then, because right now you have the community garden there, but that only operates part of the year. And then green space. What if we turn this into a park, kept the community garden and expanded it, and had some more other kinds of green infrastructure there, like trees and benches and maybe, ball fields. So not one of these is going to meet all of your needs or probably your desires. And so mixed use approach and combining some of these elements might have the greatest health benefits. Next slide, please. So the first one is the senior housing with integrated services. And this would provide housing stability, which is the foundation of our health, right? If you have a safe place to stay, that's weather tight, that's comfortable, you can then attend to your other needs, right? You can think about other things. It would eliminate transportation barriers, which is 45% of folks said that they had transportation barriers. It reduces isolation through community and having a place for folks to go. And it also supports chronic disease management. And while this would not meet everyone's needs, having senior housing with these everyone's housing needs, note that there's also those vacant places that could be rehabbed, and there's current houses that folks are living in that could be rehabbed, that could help people age in place and help people stay in their home, which we know based on the literature and we know based on experience helps you live longer. Next slide, please. Oh, you already did it. The Cultural and Community Services Hub, it would be a multi-purpose kind of community center building with youth programming and after-school activities. I mentioned the job training, but there could also be cultural programming there. Whenever Cynthia and I talked to elders, they talked about beauty pageants that they had gone to in the community when they were younger, and other kinds of cultural celebrations that could start here. And there could also be a possible clinic site or an intake site for folks that wanted to be seen. Of course, you know, it gives youth a safe place to be. It provides them mentorship pathways and, you know, it helps them grow and experience life, but also these training opportunities will help them get jobs and become more productive members. 32% of high school students report feeling hopeless in Bristol County. So we're hoping that this kind of we're not hoping, we know that this kind of a community center would help with that, would help alleviate some of the mental health issues. It would also provide economic opportunity, and it would restore some of those gathering places that have been eliminated from the community over time, which creates this great social cohesion, which this community has so much of, but it would help to really cement that. Next slide, please. Food Access Anchor Community Hub. This could be a small grocery store or a food facility that accepts all of the major food programs. They could have benefit enrollment on site for services for SNAP, WIC, for Healthy Child and nutrition, education, and cooking programs. I know there are a lot of folks in the community that are wonderful cooks. You guys fed us when we were there. And having culturally appropriate food options available, which is something that I understand is hard right now. The health benefits would help address food insecurity. It would close that SNAP gap. There are a lot more people who are eligible to get food SNAP benefits, which is another name for food stamps, to help them get enrolled and help them have more access to food. It would help prevent chronic disease by providing healthy food in the community, and it would be walking distance, so it improves access to nutrition. Next slide. If we made this a park, it would you know, and kept the community garden. That could also provide some stormwater infrastructure relief. Could have, pardon me, we could plant some more trees there for shade and cooling. One of the issues with your air quality and your heat island effect is that you don't have enough trees in the community. So that could be an anchor for some trees, and it wouldn't necessarily have to have an enclosed building, right? You could just leave it as open space. And then, excuse me, mental health benefits, green space, we know reduces stress, reduces depression, gives people a place outdoors to just be, provides opportunities for physical activity. 38% of people in the county report having no physical activity. So this would give an option. I mentioned the heat mitigation. Trees could cool the neighborhood down 2 to 8 degrees. And this has the lowest environmental risk. Remember, Steve and Pat were talking about vapor intrusion concern. So if we just left it as green space and open space, then that would alleviate any building concerns. Yes, buddy.
It's
You're
not
muted.
a question. It's not a question as much as that, because you keep on saying trees, trees, trees. I'm a tree hugger. I love trees. But if you recall, maybe you don't, along Gomes School Route 18,
Mhm.
all right, the city chopped down about 15 of the largest trees, 30 odd years old trees. And if you look on the opposite side of the Gomes School, you'll see the sisters of the trees that they knocked down. And so when we talk about this, this is an environmental justice issue with the city of New Bedford constantly saying, yeah, green, 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 but doing black, black, black. And so as much as I appreciate what you're reporting, uh, and that's where we're talking the same talk. However, I just want people to be clear that the enemy is in the room because we had trees. We've had them, and they've been cut down, cut back, and the city even used a excuse that it would help prevent crime by cutting the trees back so that the cameras can see what the bad guys were doing. Well, they never caught nobody, but they destroyed a lot of our trees up and down Acushnet Avenue. And so, as much as I agree with what you're saying, I want to be clear that, the damage that has been done to our tree population in our neighborhood has been because of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. So no matter what gets built on the site, there are some things that we know need to happen, right? We're going to do we need to have environmental protection. We have to have the environmental testing that Pat and Steve were talking about. And we have to protect the community. We have to have communication in all of the languages that the folks speak: English, Spanish, Cape Verdean, Creole, Portuguese. We have to have environmental results reported back within 30 days. We need in this community, as Buddy was just saying, to figure out how we can increase the tree canopy in a way that is compatible with what the city needs to happen there as well. We need to design for holding 1 inch of stormwater on site here, and we need to have energy efficient buildings no matter what we build. And then really what I would love to see, one of my recommendations is to have an advisory board body from the community established before the developer is selected, and to have the developer, whoever it is, enter into a community benefit agreement that this board, the city, and everyone agrees to. And hopefully some of these things that I've talked about tonight can be a part of that agreement that will help the community protect itself, protect its health. Next slide, please. So what happens if we don't do any of those things, right? The site will continue to be a neighborhood blight. We'll have potential, exposure pathways that have been unaddressed, and we'll really miss this opportunity to do something with this site that not just addresses the health impacts of the cumulative health impacts of this site over time, but also keeps things from getting worse, right? Helps promote health, helps youth thrive, helps elders thrive, and helps your community get better, right? By not perpetuating harm with this redevelopment. Next slide, please. So how are we going to know if the plan is working? The HIA has a monitoring framework in it, and excuse me, these annual reports that'll be done by the committee, they will look at each of these areas and see what's happening and what has excuse me, if your health outcomes have changed for the better or for the worse after the redevelopment, so that will make them accountable to the community, so that you'll see results, not just promises of what the redevelopment will do for you. And I believe that's my last slide. Oh, no, one more. The community advisory body, who would want to be on that, right? any of you who are residents can be on that. Stay engaged, keep attending meetings, review plans, hold folks accountable. Your voice shaped this HIA from us talking to you and sitting with you in your living rooms, but hold them accountable. Make sure that this development is good for you too. Yes, buddy.
We part of the local food, local places, created the our community action plan, which is where our advisory board is being developed from. And I just want to do another shout out to Nicole Williams, who is on, and I know you did a lot of work with her, and I appreciate that work that you all did together. And that's the kind of leadership that we're looking to develop. And with Nicole and the many folks that she has been working with, we'll be developing that advisory board prior to developing the Community Development Corporation that will be set up for the rebuilding, reuse of the site. So these are another good reasoning why we're asking for the 60-day comment period, because of the timelines that we're looking at and how to do and come up with our plan, which we expect to have by December and January of 27. And so that's why that timeline that I'm talking about is important, with the additional time for the comment period, because we're trying to make sure that more people are getting the information. And we will be having another meeting on March 17th, and we'll be doing one in April for Earth Day, and then we're doing a Brownfields one-on-one, as well as another meeting in May. So we're going to continue the process, and that's just to get people out, so they can see all of this information and be able to determine how they will participate in all that. The only piece that I'm not on with you is affordable housing. We have made it clear that affordable housing was not one of our priorities. An 50 to 60 unit would take a good chunk of that property. The city would force us to do a humongous amount of parking, which would take up a whole lot of space. We're looking for a walkable community, and the bulk of the housing activity will be in the neighborhood, including those 29 structures that you talked about in your report. We have a large community, a large neighborhood with a whole bunch of buildings that are undergrade for any state's limit as to what a house would look like. We're very undergrade. The electricity, the plumbing, the roofing for solar, all of those things on the existing housing is a serious issue. To go put more poor housing on top of poor housing makes no sense to us. We want it to be a destination center. We want it to be a walkable community, and we want services and other things for people to come and be part of the community and grow. And for that, thank you very much for the report. I think it was right on the money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. I do appreciate your input, but I did talk to many seniors who do want housing.
I'm sure you have. We have too, but we also have had an opportunity to show them why housing there is not the right thing. And I have to say that if I was keeping track of the numbers, I think we got a better plan than most people.
Sure.
A housing plan there is a gentrification plan. I'll leave it like that.
Okay, well, appreciate everybody's comments, and Michelle, you have about less than 30 minutes, so
Not a
go
problem.
for it.
Not a
to
problem.
rush.
No, we've got plenty of time, and I want to make sure that we leave some time for any additional questions by anybody too. So,
Okay.
and I want to also not first of all, Michelle Sponheimer, working on the reuse team, and as everybody has mentioned before, it's been really great to work with the community on this project. And I think that all of the presentations that we've had so far have really set that stage of recognizing, all the research and the assessment and the great news, that Steve and Pat shared, in that these issues can be addressed as part of the redevelopment, and all the testing and things that were done really lead us to a good spot. And I also want to recognize all the work with Dr. Whitehead. It really was a wonderful pairing to be able to take the health impact assessment and think about those reuse opportunities together and how they impact from a health perspective and from the planning perspective as we were working through this whole project. So, she did a great job, Sandra, in covering a lot of those potential uses and how they have the potential to be really positive for redevelopment. The other thing I wanted to just quickly say before I kind of get into some of the survey results and the summary there is I also wanted to recognize the city for the work that they have done in amending a lot of their codes and are in process right now as we were going through this plan, and we were updating the plan in live real time as codes are being amended to make development easier, to address things, Buddy, as you mentioned, like the parking requirements, and showing some reductions in there to ease those restrictions and make it more walkable and encourage those kind of opportunities. So the city, I know, is not done with those changes that they're making. And so as part of the work that we looked at stuff as we as the stuff was being and recognized too, that there's still more to come. And I'm sure they appreciate additional community comments about how those kind of things can be improved from a code perspective to continue to encourage development and get the community to be in a thriving position for this site and others. So one of the big pieces that we were looking at on the reuse side was getting input from community members. And so I think probably most of the community, at least members that are on this call, participated in some way, either by taking the reuse survey that we had out. That's what you're seeing on the screen here is all the different categories that were part of that questionnaire. And those did come from the plan, the local foods plan, as original reuse concepts. And from that, those surveys, we had 228 responses, and it was open for approximately 9 months, taking in that input. And participants were asked to rank the different concepts on a scale of 1 to 5, from whether it was least important as a 1 to extremely important as a 5. And that information was compiled and averaged to identify where the top lead reuse concepts were. And so I've highlighted those in that green box. We did see that affordable, accessible housing for local seniors did rank as the top area. And I think it was very important to recognize that it was focused on the senior population and thinking about the needs of the seniors in the community. Youth Center for Arts, Gaming, Music, Theater, Technology, all those creative things that kids need and learning environments ranked at the second highest, followed by educational and job training facilities. That is obviously New Bedford has some history with that. We saw that on this grant with the internship program and what success that can be. So encouraging that to continue, ranked very high among participants in the survey. And then Community and Senior Health Service Center. Again, as Dr. Whitehead talked about, that pairing of services for seniors and health with where they are is really critical. And I think that this signifies that importance of those two things kind of ranking, both ranking highly. Next slide, Miles. So we broke down these just a little bit further so you could see how people responded to those top 4 categories. And I think one of the really interesting pieces about this is that larger percentage number for each one shows how many of the respondents indicated that it was somewhat important to extremely important. So, ranked that as a high category of importance. And I think one of the biggest telling pieces as we think about reuse of this site is thinking about a multi-pronged approach that we can address many of these things. Just as Miles gave in his example with the YMCA, you can address all of these kind of activities within this redevelopment. And I think it's very clear from the respondents that all of these are very important things to address. And so it's not expected that maybe the site would only redevelop as one of these different options, but that we'll likely see the successful development will include several of the options and have space for programming, space for community, space, for health and wellness, and really, really address a number of things in one location. Next slide. When we were there last, we were real excited to kind of have this interaction between residents, to think about some of these spaces and uses from kind of two perspectives. And so this first one that we had, you may remember, we had a chart and a table and terrible little star stickers that were impossible to get off the sheets. But appreciated everybody's attention to those. And we saw in the area of investing in health and wellness on that chart, again, youth center, top ranking thing, community senior health center, indoor and outdoor community classrooms. So again, going towards that job training and educational opportunities. These are the things that definitely rose to the top when we think about the health and wellness opportunities that the reuse of the site can include. Next slide. We also had another chart that really had more focus on food sovereignty. And for that one, we had a lot of conversation around commercial kitchen and food hall. I think really capitalizing on the community garden opportunities or urban agriculture that could be expanded, agricultural entrepreneurship. You see that those top ranking pieces for what people felt were important, how they definitely complement each other, and can be integrated into whether it be a restaurant or classes for youth or meals for seniors. There's a lot of ways to incorporate some of these pieces, starting up, your small businesses, giving a space at more affordable options where they don't have the big capital investment to do a commercial kitchen, but they have an opportunity to work together in kind of a joint environment and have access to things to see if that business is viable for them. So there's a lot of really great things that can happen along that line of some shared spaces and expanding on the gardens. Next slide. So as we think about the reuse considerations, as I mentioned before, and as Dr. White had mentioned, right, there's this great opportunity to really think of a combination of uses that can take place on the site. And the site being two pieces, right? You do have a large amount of area to work with to be able to have a really cohesive design that incorporates all the priorities that the community has. And so some of these reuse considerations, we're not necessarily ranking them in any particular order of, as we're describing them here, recognizing that there is the highly likely potential that you'll probably include multiple things. The first one is a mixed use building. I think as Sandra was describing, the opportunity to have a ground floor with community supported development, such as that community center, health and wellness center, youth area, or maybe some neighborhood compatible commercial spaces, maybe to support some of those startup businesses, with upper stories for affordable, accessible senior housing as an option. We also have just a affordable senior residential building kind of as a standalone without having that mixed use opportunity. Sometimes that does work better from a development perspective to have ease and not trying to mix between commercial space and residential space. but I think those are both options. Expanded community gardens, and you have a great start of that, expanding that into offering additional healthy foods and education and training programs on urban art, agricultural entrepreneurship. We also, recognize that open space and green space, the importance, and the sheltering, a pavilion style that could be that open air, could be used for community events, private rentals, central gathering place for the neighborhood. And we do recognize that parking is unfortunately a necessary thing that comes along with use. And so it's important to minimize and take advantage of the restrictions that the city has trying to put in place to minimize parking. There's certain ways to incorporate that as green infrastructure, permeable pavers and stormwater management, and beautify those areas as much as possible, while still providing what's necessary, especially for folks that need accessible access. And I think that I think you went back up the other way there, Miles. Oh, there, wait, did we miss one? There, we missed one. Go back for me real quick. One more. There. We have in there a community cultural multi-purpose facility as well. So again, kind of this multi-purpose facility that could encumber a lot of different activities, giving that larger space for all kinds of different things. I know earlier we were talking, Buddy, about the resilience hubs, right? This is certainly something that can be incorporated into, a facility like this, and can have that, take the gardens and the education and everything together. And then the Health and Wellness Center, again, a facility that could range in level. We talked about during one of the engagement from adjunct to ancillary services to a full service clinic. I know that during that conversation, there was opportunity to talk with some of the folks who are in that health field and seeing that there may be potential for growth in the community to serve that. So I think we maybe got a little out of order there. So I think we're at the end on the reuse side. In the plan, as you get a chance to look at that during that extended time comment period, we do have other information and case studies and things like that to look at as well. So thank you. So back to you, Miles,
thank
or
you,
Cynthia.
Michelle. Thank you. I'll take it. Or Cynthia, would you want to field any? I'll just take Buddy's question and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Again, I'm addressing the issue of parking, just like I'm addressing the issue of housing. We're not looking for parking. We're looking for a walkable community. And when you start talking about parking, you open up Pandora's box, because the city has no legitimate policy on parking, to the point that right now the city is planning on putting parking there for electrical cars. We do not want that, and we will fight that in court if we have to, because as I've been told, you put somebody there, a place to come charge your car up, and you're driving on 195 and you Google up, where can I go charge my car? Next thing we know, we got some people in our neighborhood, whatever. It's just not the right thing. This is part of what I'm saying about transparency and all that issues that I deal with in regards to this process, because parking will be a minimal thing, because it's a transportation route. There's a bus route there, north and south, that we intend to use to be incorporated into that site on how to get people there and out. It's services in and out. Come and stay, meet your family, go do some exercising, go to a theater project at the theater that we're gonna have there, do something at the pavilion, go to the community garden, sit under the tree, all that. Housing and parking will destroy that concept. It will take away the walkability, and it will take away what we're trying to do as far as what we call the green zone, okay, which is building the green zone from Spring Street all the way down to Potomska River Street area, from county down to the waterfront, and focusing on the existing buildings and making them upgraded energy-wise, energy efficiency, installation, all that. We have some of the highest numbers for people who seek to get fuel assistance. And the reason why fuel assistance is such high commodity here in New Bedford is because our housing stock is so bad. And if we spend some time and money in upgrading our housing stock, you'll see how healthy this community will get. Because you put up a high rise for 50, 60 people, that doesn't make the rest of the community healthy. They're still living in substandard, lead, paint, asbestos housing, rat, and all that stuff housing. So it doesn't do anything. Just, oh, we put out 60 housing. For who? And who are those 60 people going to be? Are they going to be from this community? No, we know that game already. That's why we're prepared to fight that. We know the concept we're talking about, a walkable destination area with all those beautiful things you guys talked about, Cynthia and Pat and you, Michelle, and Sandra. All those things are going to happen. This is why we call it a Brownfields to Health Fields program, not a Brownfields to residential housing program, which would be a gentrification program for this community. And those who wanted housing didn't live here.
Okay, thanks, buddy. I think we have a hand up from Ivan. You're gonna have to go off mute, Ivan.
Hello, how you doing?
All right, Ivan,
Sorry.
how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the presentation. Sorry, I'm in the middle of a few things. That's why I have my camera off. But I've attended many of these events over the last year and a half now at Gomes School and virtual. And just wanted to, again, thank you for the presentation and for the update. I would like to possibly be on the advisory committee or board that was mentioned earlier. I grew up in the three houses from the site, and actually the house where I grew up is right outside of the green circle that was presented earlier for the houses for the samples. So it's very near and dear to me. It's still the neighborhood that I frequent the most, even though I moved away to the other side of the city. But so I would like to possibly be part of that to help steer this this group and what comes out to that site. And I also like to express that I hope we can, at the end of the day, have a place where there's a few different things happening from what was mentioned on the presentation, from commerce to social economic development to having a place where the community can gather and socialize and different, people can have hopefully some businesses. But I really feel that neighborhood needs that. And there's been many places, many places of gathering and events and things like that, like you mentioned earlier, that have closed since I was a kid. So there's really a lack for that in our own community. So I hope that whatever it is that we accomplish with this site, that it can touch some of those things, because just one trick pony would not, in my opinion, be justice to that community. So it has to be something that is well thought out and that's diverse, and that community can gather there in many ways, elders and young people and so forth. So that's in general, but yeah, that's what I wanted to say for now. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Would you give us your last name or either email me? I put all my information in the presentation, but we would love to follow up with you. And maybe Michelle and everybody already know you, but I don't know you, sweetie.
He's a very helpful.
I was
chasing Ivan down to be on the health committee.
You got him on your health committee. And
I tried to chase him down, but he had a lot going on at the time. So I'm glad that he's participating. No, it's great. Well, it's wonderful. Ivan and I grew up together at the same time in the neighborhood. So, I agree with him wholeheartedly.
Nicole, I was about to call on you next. And thanks again so much for all of your help throughout the last couple of years and working with us on the health impact assessment, getting those questionnaires out and getting them filled out, working with the interns. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do you have
I just wanna
anything
add
you want to
something that.
say?
Ivan, thank you for what you
Thank
said. I really appreciate your comments. However, I want to remind you, I've been asking you for 2.5 years also to be part of this committee. So I'm glad you're volunteering because we need you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, time is tough, but I will do my best, and I definitely will make time to make an effort to it because, like I said, it is definitely.
You know, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. 'Cause
I
I know
know,
you're a
buddy.
busy
No, I
guy.
know. I know.
I know
We're
you're a
good.
busy guy, but that's the kind of guys we need, busy guys. And Joanna, I know you're on too. We need you as well. Okay, so I'll leave it like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm always
Thank you.
here. I'm always here for my community.
Thank you, Joanna. I do want to mention 2 things or 3 things. One, the presentation will be put on the New Bedford Brownfield page. And 2, we're going to do a flyer requesting now the 60-day review to get that out to everybody so that they can go on, look at the reports, and we can get comment. And we do want your comments. We plan on putting appendix in the back of the report of all the comments that are received, and you know, the leads on both of those reports will take those under advisement and make you know, changes where we need to make. But we definitely will chronicle the comments. So thanks in advance, Michelle and Courtney, for helping us get those. We have a email address that we want the comments sent to, and that'll be on the website as well. I did want to mention about the health impact assessment as well. I found, since I've been dealing with Sandra, by having a health impact assessment, and you don't have to agree with every conclusion in it, but if you're going after funding, whether it's brownfield funding or funding for, you know, urban forestry or urban farms or whatever it is, by having that health impact assessment to back up your grant application, it really does help you get funding. And I know that I've got two sites that got $1 million brownfield grants or coalition brownfield grants due to using HIAs as backup. So that's worth it. And I really appreciate everybody taking their time tonight. And then also, if there's any questions that you have after this, the email address that Michelle put in, we'll take any questions there as well and address them, that, you know, one of the team members will get back to you. We also have a QR code on the presentation, the last page, which will be posted, that you can get a hold of any of us directly if need be. And for me, this is, you know, I'm winding down my career at some point here, and to be a part of this, buddy, has been very special. And I know that you guys have, I think we've made a lot of progress moving the ball forward on a lot of different regards. You know, environmentally, we know that we still have issues that aren't insurmountable, but they need to be addressed. I also feel like from a reuse planning, it's not saying that everybody agrees with every idea in there, but we captured a snapshot in time of the information that we gathered. And what I thought was interesting is that the surveys were really telling, but also the wheels were telling. And the wheels and the surveys don't necessarily agree in every category. And I think that's the reason why you have more than one way to, because people don't respond to, you know, some people don't respond to those as well. And I just like to thank everybody. We're more than happy to take questions till 8:30. And buddy, I'll turn it back over to you for an additional question if you have it.
Well, I was going to have a closing remark anyway.
Sure, that'd be closing remarks would be great at this point.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you all. I really appreciative of this process. We still got a lot of work to do. We'll be meeting again on March 17th. For those who didn't attend today, we'll hopefully have this to give out to folk as well, and any additional information. But I want to say that I'm not surprised about the surveys. All that was, I could have did that. I could have told you all that myself, okay, 2 years ago. So I'm not surprised, including the housing issue. So don't take offense to me not being in favor of whatever you said about housing. I knew that was going to be a top thing. It always has been. Before the buildings even came down, they were talking about building housing there. But we were also talking about doing a job training center there. Back in 1999, when the building was still there, we were talking about a job training center there. So we come full circle in that regard, and so I'm appreciative of it. But I'm more appreciative of the environmental assessment, because it tells us what really happened there and what didn't happen, the timeliness of what happened and didn't happen, and all that, and where we are today. And we're not far from a healthy site. We're not far from something that could really produce a healthy project for the community to be healthy. I just have to say that, Steve and Pat, I appreciate your work, appreciate your dialogue, and especially I appreciate how you deliver the information, because it's easy to understand, it's easy to be able to pick up and move forward with. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this material, is use it as a proactive piece of information that will further develop a plan that will be healthy and wealthy and wise for the community. Economic development, youth development, maintaining our seniors, and food security, all of the things that we're talking about, but also making sure that this site, the infrastructure of it, takes us into the 21st century of being green. And that's what this was all about from Jump Street. And that's why we call it the whole area. It's an energy empowerment zone area for us. And so when we look at the site, we look at the whole neighborhood as the site as well. So again, thank you for everyone has done, and good night.
And Buddy, thank you for all your hard work and your great work up to this point and beyond, because I know you're not going anywhere, which is great.
No, you're right on point there.
No, I know that.
Well, I hope
So-
none of y'all go anywhere, because, well, I'm glad you said it that way, Michelle. Hey, don't anybody go anywhere,
No.
because the job is not done yet.
Absolutely.
We've done a very important project. This is, I've been to a lot of these brownfield things. I've seen this, and and I tell you, when we was in Chicago at the conference, Chicago, I was with Miles and Susie and them, and what a beautiful project that you guys did. That one meeting we had with a lady from Chicago, who happens to be Cape Verdean, and she worked for the chief of staff for the Chicago mayor, and she happened to be Cape Verdean. But it was so intriguing to see the success of what happens there. And Courtney was there in that meeting as well. And I tell you, the success that we can do has happened already. And so please, ladies and gentlemen, we're far from over. We're going to do a project that has been done before, and it'll be done again here in New Bedford. Thank you.
So Buddy, I will be looking to get with you to talk about this comment period and how we're going to get more involvement, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Because that's been real important to me, right?
Well, that's the key. That's the key, and I'll say this, and is that the bigger the table, the bigger the results.
I agree. We agree with
That's
that
what
for
we're
sure.
trying to do. And
Yep. Love it.
We've had a few setbacks here and there, but we're back on track. Earth Day is coming, the groundhog saw his shadow, I think, whatever, and so let's all pick up our bootstraps and get ready for the warm weather and take care of your families, your animals, and your communities, ladies and gentlemen, because it's been a trying time for all of us. I know that.
Yeah. Well, I'd
Just
like
so
to
you
thank.
know, it's 80 degrees in Atlanta today.
Yeah.
Well, we had 50. I think it was 50 something or 60 here, so we're catching up.
86
Okay.
in Clearwater.
Thank you, everybody.
thank
Great
you all.
meeting. So proud
Thank
of
you,
this
everybody.
all.
meeting.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.